Good evening. We are ready to start with our committee meeting. I'd like to call it to order tonight. Our speaker is going to be Jamie Pafford Gresham with Pafford Emergency Medical Services. And they're going to give us a report on how they've done this first 6 months and how everything's worked out. So, Jamie, I'm going to turn it over to you. And would you introduce the folks you brought with you tonight?
I will.
Thank you.
I could not do the job that I've done the last 6 months without the support staff that I have behind me. And you have Jared Ritchie as well as Sean Mahaney, and they are right here in Conway, as well as John Gray, which is my Director of Operations for Arkansas. And these two guys have just been a vital part of what I feel like has been a success in the last 6 months. And I just would like to highlight that tonight, if y'all would allow me. So, well, in case you just didn't happen to notice, that is one of your new ambulances. And we do have 5 24-hour trucks here in the city of Conway. And just as we discussed during our presentation, that they were going to be placed in your fire department, plus one other location here in town. And I think they look really good. And we did the same thing for the 3 Faulkner County trucks that are out in the county. And we do feel like this is a milestone to be here right after COVID with all of the problems that everyone thought we would have. And thank the good Lord, we've overcame almost every one of those. And through communication, through the fire chief, through the hospitals, through the community itself, we've been able, I think, to put together a really good EMS system for not only the city of Conway, but Faulkner County. And I've told the guys they're more than welcome to jump in here at any time because they work this each and every day. And one of the things that we're most proud of is the fact that we are fully staffed. And I know you guys that were here in those early days in February and were concerned whether or not we were going to be able to staff the number of trucks. I told you folks that we were looking for good hometown people that wanted to take care of their community and take care of the citizens of the place they lived. And that's pretty much what we've done. We have a wonderful group of part-time folks that come over from the fire department and other walks of life that work with us, especially on events and special occasions as well. And it just takes a village, with that being said, for us all to be able to do what we're doing on a daily basis. And I'm going to jump over this, and you can come back and talk about the staffing and some of that if you want here in just a second. But I told you we wanted to know the patient before we saw them at 2 a.m. in the morning, and they were, we wanted them to know Pafford. It's not my face, but it's the face of the guys that are on the ambulance. And we've tried really hard to integrate ourselves in everything we needed to within the community. And early on, I know you guys, many of you probably attended Toad Suck Days and saw our presence there, and that's normal in our communities. Y'all just have a really big event, and we happen to bring in our mobile hospital and some things like that. Just to take that extra step to take care of you guys, to make sure you had that coverage. I was just talking to everybody, the closer you get to Friday night, if you want to mess up somewhere, mess up at a football game, okay? So Friday nights and Saturdays are very important to us and our crews. It's just to make sure that we're taking care of people's kids, and you are in the limelight at that point in time. And so we find it very important to have those relationships, not only with the high schools, but the colleges, and as well as the team medical staff, knowing what's going on in case somebody's hurt. So that's big. So there's been a lot of pregame and planning that's went on during this period of time. And same way with the county fair. Those are just all places that we try to be. We try to be seen and try to be a part of the community. So you're not just seeing me at 2 a.m. and needing the ambulance. And you want to talk about this a little bit? This is kind of your baby? Well, this is a first for me. I love to take care of our guys and I take care of our communities, but one of the things that we had been asked to do is to partner up with law enforcement here and make a strike team to go out with the sheriff and others to make sure that we had a tactical response team. I'm really good at hurricanes. I can do a hurricane, but this was a little different for me. But the guys and their expertise basically stepped in and said, we've got this. This is something we want to do. And we were able to go through our paramedics and select our guys. You talk about it just a little bit.
This involves you too. Come up here.
Yeah, and this was important. This was something.
It actually does. He didn't know this.
So we have 10 paramedics and one doctor. One of the local cardiologists that's been involved in tactical medicine for a very, very long time, Dr. Stephen, is our tactical doctor that we rely on. But we have 10 paramedics that are basically on call 24/7 for any tactical needs. We provide law enforcement because we are all certified law enforcement through Faulkner County Sheriff's Office. And we also provide medical at SWAT call-outs, barricaded suspects. We take care of these SWAT teams. We're basically like their doctors. So we kind of watch out for them as well. We've completed many, many missions. One of them was actually this afternoon. We had a SWAT call-out with Conway PD.
I was about to say, was that?
And we also partner with, the reason that Chief Winter is up here, we partner with the fire department. We have two of his, one captain and one lieutenant, engineer, that are also employees of Pafford that help us on this strike team. We've completed missions with Faulkner County. We've completed missions with Conway PD. We recently had a multi-jurisdiction in Van Buren County where they were involved in there, which was a 2-day op. We are in talks with Arkansas State Police. They are looking at employing our team to go out with their tactical services also. And some of these ops will last 2-3 days, some of them up to a week. So we not only provide the medical coverage, law enforcement, but we plan for anything that can happen. Air medical, getting our ambulances in place, and things like that. So it's not just showing up and standing around. There are physical requirements that they have to do, not only to get on our strike team, which are pretty rigorous, that I think John is wanting to try out for it as well. And we also have to do PT tests with Faulkner County Sheriff's Office. And we have to pass all of their physical requirements as well. Be rigorous, first ever Pafford strike team.
Yeah, that's really meant for the safety of the schools as well, but, for us, college and training. Probably one of the first. We're going to do that, and we think it's really important. And so this was an investment. This was quite a large investment that we did in the. I think that everyone's been taking care of each other at the end of the.
I can tell y'all, I drove through what they're talking about that happened this afternoon, and it was a huge presence. There was like 4 Pafford trucks. I don't know how many Conway PD. There was a lot of people there. I don't know what happened, but I think it got taken care of.
Well, it's not in my slide, but so Chief, I know you need your exercise, so just come on back up here. And I didn't tell him either, but one of the big concerns we had that evening was actually having the relationship with the fire department and actually staffing our trucks in the fire stations. And I just kind of want to just pitch that to you because you're here on a daily basis just to say how that is working, or you're kicking me out or what.
Yeah, it's if you can think of the ideal situation of merging 2 different entities under one roof, that's what's happened. They're just like the firemen. Matter of fact, they have changed their shifts to mimic our shifts. They were working 24 on, 48 off. Now they're working 48 on, 96 off. So the shifts are paired together. From 6:30 a.m., they're grabbing brooms and mops and cleaning the station and cooking the food. And it helps in the fact that sometimes we don't get the call. It gets dropped. We hear Pafford's radios go off. They're leaving. We don't get the call. We jump right in behind them. So you get more hands on scene to help, and it's really been seamless, and it's worked ideally.
So we've been very pleased with that. I know our guys have. They feel like they're a part of your community. And when I told y'all in February, this is your asset, this is your truck, that's truly what I meant by it. I'm maybe managing the people on it and taking care of the medical side of it, but I really wanted it to feel like it belonged to you at the end of the day, and I think we've done that. I apologize. This has Faulkner County in it, but I do have a sheet that just has the city of Conway because, you guys were great big brothers for this project, and y'all were very worried about the county as well, and I applaud you for that. But overall, in the last 6 months, we've responded to over 11,000 ambulance calls. And of those calls, your portion of those calls ends up being right at 8,700 calls. So in 6 months, we have responded to 8,700 calls inside the city limits of Conway. I think one of the things that, and with that being said, we do our best to make sure that we're meeting your guidelines for our response times and out of the chute. And with that being said, one of the things you'll see here is, I'm not a chart person. Somebody else likes charts way better than me. It just talks about where most of our calls are between 8A and 8P. 72% of our ambulance calls are during that period of time. And then our busiest days, of course, being during the midweek, and the weekends being a little bit less busy. But there's not very much variation with that. But with that being said, we get out of the chute within 2 minutes, and this is a county response time here of 9 minutes, and you have yours there in front of you. And we are under 7 minutes, I believe, that you'll see on your page. I'm not staring at it. So, and this has gone over quite often. The chief has access to our records, what we're doing. The guys talk on a daily basis, pretty much, and they know when we're responding. And you can see pretty much we are not only getting the patient taken care of in a very timely manner. We're doing it all the time, just about. I mean, our numbers are really strong there. The 90th percentile still being under 13 minutes. And the priority twos, that's no lights and sirens. And I have to tell you, that's the ones I like a little better because there's a little bit less risk with that. I hate when I see an ambulance going through town with lights and sirens. We're still getting there under our required 8 minutes and 59 seconds. So we're meeting the guidelines that you set out for your community and are very proud of that. We still work closely with the hospitals. We meet with them weekly. One of the other things they asked us to do was have a standby ambulance when they had someone in the cath lab or something like that, and we've been working through that. Now, that can be a pain some days of the week, but we're making it work and we're communicating. And so those trucks are helping out there, and we continue to have a very strong working relationship with them with a lot of communication going on. I would think overall, I think it's the next slide here. Kind of see that it just keeps going. Your traffic incidents, that they're up there pretty high of what happens, and just getting there. And with that being said, I think that overall we are very pleased to be a part of the community. Our KPIs, our key performance indicators that we review monthly and every couple of weeks, are showing that we're on target. And then just continuing on with our growth here in the community, as well as our outreach and education with our EMT programs and some things like that we continue to work on. We're close, almost have all of our approvals for that. So that's what's going on at Pafford right now. Did I forget anything? And I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, or just thank you from the bottom of my heart, believing in me and believing that I could do what I said I was going to do. And I told you all the day that I couldn't, I'd come to you and tell you I was struggling. But I'm not struggling, and I'm very appreciative of the opportunity that you've given me. And we're going to continue to work hard to please you in the community.
Is this volume of runs, is that kind of what y'all were expecting?
About 1,000. Mm-hmm. We're about where we thought we would be. Just kind of oddly, Saline County, was just a month before y'all. I took on 2 very large counties in 60 days, and there may be a reason I have an ulcer. But their numbers didn't hit where we thought because the hospital stayed in the ambulance business, and that's made a struggle on us. And we're working. We still have all of our trucks there that we said we would have there, and we're responding as we should. But you can see how it made a difference. There were about 700 calls where y'all are at 1,000 calls, and so just hitting our mark was very important, and having the proper coverage and meeting our guidelines for response times, that was big for us. So we're pleased with that.
I haven't heard any complaints.
I haven't either.
I did hear a couple of, there weren't complaints, but they were just concerned about the billing. They got a $5,000 bill it showed, or
Well, they didn't get it from me. I would say that. I'm under, at the advice of my lawyers, I can't talk about this a whole lot. I have a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield to be a participating provider of ambulance services, and they've contracted with a company called Alacura. And to be an in-network provider, I have to be a part of Alacura. And my bill continues to be $1,500 and $20 a mile, just like I told y'all in presentations that's what our rates would be, and that's what my rate is, and that's what I sent my bill for. So that particular, if you see a bill of that amount, I know that number, so that's why it's familiar to me. That's not from me, that's from Alacura. So anybody that's a Blue Cross beneficiary is going to have some concern there and would have to call Alacura or Blue Cross, to be frank, for the answer of why that's that way. But my expected deal is still the deal that we made with you guys. So that's that one.
On air ambulance, helicopters, tell us how that works. Do y'all have some of your own? Do you contract with somebody? How often does that happen? Tell us more about that.
We do not have a helicopter in the area. Most of our helicopters are in Mississippi and Louisiana, so I do not have a helicopter in the service area, but you do have assets surrounding you that we call when it's required, and we're usually working with not only the fire department, but the police department when that asset needs to be brought in. And so I do not have an air asset here.
But you have access to one when needed. I mean, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we all have really good working relationships with them. You're in a position where you have great medical facilities right here, and a lot of people don't have that. So your transport times aren't, we don't call it often. The guys would probably know. And when we do call a helicopter, we do review why it was called. You guys know we had an air incident several years ago that ended in a crash and killing some of our people. And I'm very mindful of when we utilize a helicopter and that it should be medically necessary and we should be calling it for a reason. So we watch that pretty closely. Every once in a while, you'll have someone call a helicopter, whether it be a volunteer fireman or someone else outside. So we think it's bad and we need someone, and they call it, and we just, if the patient needs it, that's what we do. But we have the relationship there.
Good.
Is the attorney happy?
I knew I was going to get dragged into this. The other thing I wanted to say is just acknowledge that Chief Winter 2 years ago or even longer, he's been committed to improving the medical care available to the citizens of Conway. I know, because a lot of times I was at his elbow just watching the man. And he worked hard and he fought hard and he persevered, and his goal was to bring a premium medical services company to Conway, and he did it. So I just
Great job, Chief. Whoever was.
We appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for being here. Well, at this time, we will close the committee meeting and get back here at 6:30 for a regular meeting. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
mayor is unavailable to be with us tonight, so I think I'm in charge of this situation. So I'll try and not let it run off the tracks. So anyway, we usually open our proceedings with a word of prayer. Ms. Isby, would you mind doing that? And then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance after that.
If you'll bow with me. Our gracious Father, we thank you for the abundant blessings that you've given us. We thank you, Lord, for this wonderful community that you have blessed us with. We just ask, Lord, that all of our actions that we do tonight are to the best of our ability and our interest. And we ask that at the end you get the glory and the honor that you well deserve. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Isby, for that.
Sure.
And Mr. Garrett, if you'll call the roll.
Sir. Mr. Grimes?
Here.
Ms. Tucker?
Here.
Ms. Mel?
Here.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Ms. Isby?
Here.
And Mr. Hawkins?
Here. With that, we will open the meeting tonight with our monthly financial reports. And Mr. Winningham, if you'll come tell us how good, bad, or indifferent we're doing.
Mostly very well, sir.
Thank you very much. Go have a seat.
All approved? Good evening, everybody. We're looking at the month of August. Sales tax was another good month for us. We were up about 13.6%, which is right about where we fall for the year. We're up about 13.8. And in dollars, it's about $2.2 million ahead of budget. Or not ahead of budget, but in excess of what we collected last year at this time. Another item I'll point out to you in our general fund revenues is the state grant revenue. You see we got a little over $600,000 receipt there in the month of August. That was our funding from the state of Arkansas for the police officer stipends. And those were distributed last Friday. So everything should be good on that. Any questions or comments on general fund before we move forward? Street fund, I'll just point out that the bottom line there is very unattractive right now. And that is for the purchase and closing of the Conway Court property on Hartrider. So that's something we knew was coming. And our fund balance this year will take a hit, and hopefully we can start building that back up as the years go on. Sanitation fund, everything is doing well there, $2.4 million net revenue through August. And then in our airport fund, we're showing a positive number at the bottom line. Not a very big positive number, but if you look over on that budget column, we're not expecting a very big number there anyway. So everything appears to be on the up and up there. And Mr. Hawkins, that concludes my comments, and I'll be happy to go over anything further if you'd like.
Thank you, Mr. Winningham. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Winningham this evening?
Make a motion for approval of the August financials.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the financials for that month. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the financials signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much, Mr. Winningham. We appreciate your report.
Alderman Hawkins, can we haven't approved the minutes from last meeting?
You know what, Mr. Garrett just wrote that down
Oh,
for me
okay.
over here, and I certainly appreciate
Well, you're
that.
welcome.
You know, I don't do this very often.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah, well,
Really.
we'll see when the replay comes out. Let's see. The minutes. Oh, yeah, we have minutes. that
I have a
been-
motion to
Thank
approve
you.
the minutes submitted.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Any discussion on that? And all in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. Community Development Committee is the first item on the agenda, and the first item is an ordinance to rezone a little over 1.25 acres of property at 82 Lower Ridge Road. It currently is zoned A1. The requested zoning is R2A. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their meeting on September 19th. And at that time, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to send this to City Council with a recommendation of approval. And Mr. Walden, good evening.
Yes, good evening. This property is located on the west side of the entrance to Matthews Meadows. On the east side of the entrance, there's already an approved PUD. It was part of that overall development, PUD for duplex development. They're seeking R2A on this side to place 2 duplexes on that property. They'll be, if this is approved, they will subsequently be seeking a conditional use because they want to place them both on one lot. But the maximum they can get on that side of what they're seeking is 2 duplexes. So it's really to have a consistent style of development that is consistent with what's already been approved on the east side of that entrance.
I
Make
make
a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings for this rezoning request. Is there any discussion at this point in time? Mr. Garrett?
All in favor of waiving the reading, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
I make a motion for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and second for adoption of the ordinance. Any discussion on that? Mr. Garrett?
The ordinance 022-109. Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye. And that passes 8-0. The next item is an ordinance amending the Conway district boundary map, rezoning 2.02 acres of property at 4701 Weston Park Drive. It currently is zoned O2. The requested zoning is R1. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their meeting on September 19th. And at that time, the commission voted 6-0 that the request be sent to City Council with a recommendation of approval. And Mr. Walden, one more time.
Yes, so this property is on the south side of the entrance to Weston Park. It's sort of a rare example we get where someone is requesting to downzone property. It was zoned O2 a while back, a long time ago. It's set vacant. Really hasn't had a market much for that type of use. So the applicant has come back in and requested to rezone this to R1 to divide it into 2 lots for single family development. So kind of consistent with some of the character of the development along that section of Prince Street. So it's ironically, it does comport with the comprehensive plan. The current zoning doesn't, but the proposed zoning does. So by, I guess, luck in that situation.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor of waiving the readings signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we have an ordinance.
I make a motion for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
We have an ordinance to adopt or to vote on. It's ordinance 022-110. And Mr. Garrett?
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes. And that passes 8-0. And the final item on the Community Development Committee is an ordinance to amend procedures for authorizing conditional uses in the city of Conway. And Mr. Walton, I'm going to get out of the way and let you talk for a while.
Sure, yes. So this is one that we have had in the hopper, have been working on for a while. Essentially, this is changing the procedures for rezonings and conditional use permits. So there's several different things in here that are changes. The first of which is kind of clarifying some of our public notice signage requirements. We've got requirements for signs each 500 feet. We've gone in there, clarified that that's each 500 feet, but it's also required on each frontage to make sure that that's clear. We've aligned some of our notification requirements with changes that have been made in state law. They're actually changes that were made a long time ago for notification of the school district. we've abided by it, but we're including that in ordinance just so that it's there. I think last year or maybe the year prior, the Planning Commission had changed in their bylaws some considerations related to amendments to applications for rezonings. Essentially, that if you came before for a rezoning and you tried to verbally amend the application at the meeting, it would trigger an additional public hearing. What we've done is gone in here and then sort of formalized that in code and taken a little further. Essentially, if you amend the application 10 days prior, which is essentially that is backs us into where we can make the appropriate changes to the staff report. So if, let's say someone goes in and they request an MF1 zoning and they find out staff's not going to support MF1 zoning, but they might support R2, they can amend the application up to 10 days prior to the public hearing. If it's at any point after that, so let's say that they come to the meeting and they say, we want to amend that, it's an MF1 request and we want to amend it down to R2A, it would automatically trigger an additional public hearing. So it's trying to make sure that in that situation, we don't have sort of a 3-card Monte or anything like that, where we shift around. It's like, oh, well, surprise, it's actually this application. So trying to protect neighboring property owners as much as possible. Additionally, it sets an expiration date for passage of a conditional use that goes unused. One of the things that we've noticed that we have an issue with, a good example of this is there's what self-storage that's on the east side of town that's currently being constructed. They activated a conditional use that was passed numerous years ago. Likely under current conditions, it would not be approved today. So we've got a lot of these old conditional uses that are sitting around town. Obviously, we can't do anything about those that are old and existing, but what this would do is any new conditional use that comes in, if it's passed, it's basically use it or lose it. You can't just hold on to it forever. So it's sort of you got 18 months to go through the development process, all those things, activate the conditional use, and you're good. Again, that's to deal with a lot of these. We don't want to continue having these old unused conditional use permits.
James, don't we limit those conditional uses to the applicant?
So
Or do
that's
they not always do
that is one thing that is I would say somewhat problematic. There are a number of them that are. What happens then is it triggers and it comes back. And what we have been doing in those cases is removing that where it's limited to that applicant. And the reason being is that, based on advice that I've been given in the past, is that when you're regulating a conditional use, you're regulating the land. You're not necessarily regulating the use. So it could be perceived as if a conditional use is approved for, let's say, Mary, and then you approve it for Mary, and then you come back, but you don't approve it for David. Who are you? What are you regulating? Is it the use of the land, or are you regulating who's operating it? And that is somewhat problematic. And so we've tried to move away from that to where the conditions are based not around who is operating the business, but what the actual conditions of the business are. So that, again, trying to make sure that we have an even playing field where we don't have some animals are more equal than others in that situation.
Do you have any idea how many of those are out there that
There's a lot
been
of
there
them.
5 or 6 years or more?
There's a lot of them.
I mean, what's a lot?
I would say in the tens, not in the hundreds, but in the tens. Yeah.
What trigger will we have in place if this gets approved will you keep a log of those conditional use permits to know they're off the books after 18 months, or how will you?
Essentially
police
on
that?
on the permit, it'll have a expiration date. So if they come in to pull building permits and it's expired, then
But what happens if they don't do anything with it? Will you?
yeah,
You'll
it's,
pull it
it's,
then?
it's revoked. Yeah,
Okay.
it gets pulled down.
All right.
The next is providing a revocation process. for conditional use permits. Essentially, we don't have a, let's say that you don't abide by your conditional use permit approval. What happens in that situation? Under the current ordinance, it's not real clear. So this provides basically a revocation procedure where we go through, we notify them, hey, you're in violation. If you contest that, then you can go through a procedure to contest it. If you don't, then it ends up being revoked. So provides a procedure for that. And then additionally, we add some review criteria for conditional use permits and rezonings, basically some guidelines for decision making, most important of which is consistency with the comprehensive plan and compatibility with the surrounding areas and things like that.
Let me ask the question. We had somebody that violated that before. What's the process? Is it a consequence for them doing it, or is it too late to call on them like they built somewhere it shouldn't have been built?
You mean in terms of somebody's violating their condition? Well, I mean, this provides a process for us to revoke the permit. Now, if they've constructed a building, obviously we're not gonna tear down buildings, but it is enough to get attention for us to go through some type of enforcement process that can cause them to cease whatever it is that they're doing in that situation. So that revocation process then allows us to go through a violation process.
Just for instance, someone begins a project and they have a building coming out of the ground, and for whatever reason, they don't have the money to finish the project. What happens at that point in time?
That's a good question. I would say that they could likely in that instance seek a continuance, or seek sort of a extension of the permit in that situation. But I think again, it's largely intended. We don't want to have zombie projects that lay around for 5 or 10 years that nothing ever gets done. And I understand there's situations that occur. God forbid we have the Great Recession again, and there's a lot of subdivisions that just got abandoned across the U.S. When that happened.
Any other questions of Mr. Walden about this particular situation?
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
A motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have an ordinance.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance 022-111.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 022-111. Mr. Garrett.
Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes. And that passes 8-0. Mr. Walden, thank you very much. I heard you say earlier and during that last piece of business that this had been in the hopper for a while. I didn't know whether you were talking about Mr. Hopper or not. Mr. Hopper, you might have to empty your pockets, sir.
I don't know why I felt that one
to us.
coming. How are y'all tonight?
We're doing good. And let's see, we have a resolution approving the purchase of a crawler dozer for the sanitation department. Mr. Hopper.
Sir, so for your consideration tonight, we need to replace our largest dozer that we use for pushing trash. We did come in a little under budget, close to $100,000. So
Good.
Wow.
Good.
We're very pleased with that. Our fuel budget will appreciate that.
Absolutely.
We are trying to purchase this through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Contract as well. So
I make a motion for adoption of the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and second for adoption of the resolution. And Mr. Garrett, the resolution is what?
R2246.
46. And any discussion, any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Hopper.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, hold on just, Mr. Hopper, hold on just a second. Council wants to talk.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I won't take too long. since Mr. Hopper is up at the podium, I wanted to mention what I saw this morning. I was at Julie Lee Moore Elementary School about 7:50 a.m. There were a line of cars lined up on Country Club of parents, cars literally filled with young children waiting to turn into the school. It's a very dangerous time of the morning because kids are still crossing the road, and sometimes cars will hop out of that line to get into the through line at Country Club. And people tend to get into more of a hurry at that time of the morning. As I was standing there off to my left, I noticed a blue Conway sanitation truck rolling down Country Club. And he was initially doing what appeared to me to be about the speed limit, about 20 miles an hour. The driver slowed down to about 9 miles an hour, which would have given him ample opportunity and time to stop suddenly if he had to, which sometimes happens. It was a perfect example of good, safe driving. And so I just thought it was an opportune time to bring it up as y'all are approving a new piece of equipment. Just know that I have seen with my own eyes how safely Mr. Hopper's crews operate the equipment.
I appreciate that. We've got some great employees. We're not perfect, but we sure try real hard.
Yeah.
So thank you
Did
for
it
that.
right this morning.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Hopper, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Good evening.
We appreciate it. Moving on to Public Safety Committee, we have an ordinance appropriating funds for fuel replenishment for the Conway Fire Department. Chief Winter?
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. We've used all of our fuel budget,
Imagine that.
We all.
and we're requesting to replenish about 40,000 of it to get us through the end of the year.
Make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor of waiving the reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we have an ordinance.
Make a motion for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance O-22-112. Mr. Garrett?
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
And that passes 8-0.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is consideration to approve removal of inventory for the Conway Police Department. And look at here, we've got another chief.
Good evening.
Oh, Chief Tapley.
How are you?
Good, sir.
Good. This is a list of items, 5 vehicles, 30 pieces of silver, 6 pieces of gold that are seized assets.
We're listening.
Yeah.
We're listening.
They will be available if you approve on publicsurplus.com. We're asking to get rid of these through auction. So we don't need them.
So moved.
Second.
I'm guessing that was tongue in cheek. I don't know that it was, though.
Me too.
Yeah.
Is it true? All right, it's true. We
It's
got to
true.
have the story.
They were seized through our asset seizures during different investigations, and as part of that, we have to get rid of them. Either use them or get rid of them, and I don't think they mean use it by actually going out and spending it. So we do have to auction those off.
Pieces of silver, like, and pieces of gold, like,
Pieces of
or
gold,
we
yes.
talking balls?
No, I think they're the smaller pieces. of
Oh,
gold.
okay.
I would really prefer them to be larger pieces of gold, but I don't think we're that lucky. We help out wherever we can.
Almost sounded like a Bible story for a minute. Okay. We have an ordinance. No, we don't have an ordinance. Just a motion and consideration to approve this. We do need a motion for this.
We got a motion.
Oh, we do?
Yep.
Never mind. Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. And the next item is an ordinance appropriating reimbursement funds for the Conway Police Department. And Chief Tapley?
We have received reimbursements for extra duty services, some donations. We also have insurance proceeds, and we're just asking to accept those funds and place them in the appropriate accounts.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and second to waive the 3 readings for ordinance O-22-113. All in favor of waiving the readings signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Make a motion
Passes
for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and second for adoption of the ordinance O-22-113. Mr. Garrett?
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes. That passes 8-0. And finally, on the agenda tonight is an ordinance appropriating asset forfeiture funds for the Conway Police Department and Chief Tapley.
So the state has changed their requirements for submitting fingerprints. They no longer accept the cards and the ink from us. It has to be the computerized live scan. To this point, we have been using Faulkner County Detention Center for their machine. We would like to be able to purchase one of our own out of asset forfeitures. Does a couple of different things. Number one, we're not having to send our employees over to the detention center to be fingerprinted when we hire them. Number two, nonviolent Class A misdemeanors that are just going to be OR'd anyway, instead of taking them to the jail and going through that process, we can actually do that at our facility, putting officers back on the street quicker. So,
Make a motion to waive 3 readings.
Second.
A motion and second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor of waiving the reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have an ordinance to be read, ordinance 022-114.
Make a motion for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
Have a motion and second for adoption of the ordinance. And Mr. Garrett?
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Hawk?
Yes. That passes 8-0. I just had that sinking feeling in my shoes that I didn't see an emergency clause all night or call for a vote on one.
We didn't have.
No.
You did great.
Felicia, thank you so much for not putting one of those on the agenda tonight. I appreciate it. Did I miss anything else?
No, you did great.
Then I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, gang.
Good job.
Thank you, gang. Y'all make it easy. You've done good. Y'all make it easy.